I love a barbecue outside, but one of the problems is you're outside, you're inside, you're outside, you're inside. I'm gonna keep it really simple. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make everything inside, prepare it, and then cook it outside. So I'm making confetti corn. First thing I'm doing is taking all the corn off the cob. I just think it's so much more delicious that way. Just cut off the end and just sit it up on its little rear end. And just slide your knife right between the kernels and the cob. You want to get all of the kernel and none of the cob. I'm going to saute it with red onions and peppers and fresh herbs. It's going to be absolutely delicious. Okay, so that's about a quart of corn kernels. I just want to get all the ingredients ready so when I get outside, I can stay outside. Okay, now the rest of the ingredients. I've got red onion, all chopped up. I'm going to saute that with a little olive oil first. I've got chopped orange pepper. That's going to go in the corn. Next is fresh herbs. I've got about 2 tablespoons, and it's a combination of chives, basil, and parsley. My friends are coming for a bridge party, and instead of making the usual chips and dip, I thought I'm going to make them sliders, which are little hamburgers, and confetti corn. And I'm going to do it all on the grill. So first I'm going to do the confetti corn. I've sauteed some onions and a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to add 1 pepper, chopped. I have a nice orange pepper, it's really sweet. Saute that for a minute. This is great doing it all on the grill instead of running inside for the stove and outside for the grill. I've got it all right here. Okay, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. And 4 cups of corn that I cut off the husks. Lots of salt and pepper. Give it lots of flavor. And just let it cook for about 10 minutes until the corn is really tender and the peppers are cooked. And then I'm gonna add some fresh herbs. Come grill with me.
All righty.
All right, here I go.
So I've got confetti corn.
You're sauteing it right on the grill.
Right on the grill, yeah.
I never thought of that before.
Yeah, why not? I'm just gonna add 2 tablespoons of fresh herbs. I've got basil, chives, and parsley, just to give it nice, fresh color. How's that look?
Terrific.
Does that look like it'd be good with sliders? Yeah. We're having mini hamburgers.
And aren't we playing bridge?
Well, at some point, I think we will. So I'm gonna just put it in this bowl. You wanna take it over to the buffet? While I put the sliders on the grill. These don't look bad, do they? Okay, so there's cucumber salad and corn also. Help yourself.
Yep. Looks delicious.
One of my favorite ways to use this corn is in fresh corn pancakes. Let me take you back to the last time I made them. This is how I cut corn off the cob. Instead of having it all over the kitchen, I take a sheet pan and I put a towel on top and I cut the corn right onto the towel. And then I can just pick up the towel and pour all the kernels right into a bowl. Just run your knife really close to the cob so you get as much of the kernels as possible. That's 4 ears of corn. You'll need 3 cups of kernels. So now, instead of trying to collect corn from all over your kitchen, all I need to do is pick up the towel and pour it into the bowl. How easy is that? Okay, now I'm gonna make the batter. First, the dry ingredients. So I need 1 cup of, I use very fine cornmeal, and then I mix it with half a cup of coarser cornmeal. It's kind of medium grind. I just like the combination of the two. It gives a great texture. 2 teaspoons of sugar, just a tiny little bit of sugar. Give it a little sweetness. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. It's gonna make them rise. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Half a cup of flour, just lighten it, and then just level it off. And 1 tablespoon of salt. Okay, that's the dry ingredients. Now the wet ingredients. I'm gonna add them to the corn. So I've got 3 cups of corn. I'm gonna add 1 3/4 cups of buttermilk. The buttermilk has great thickness to it, and it's gonna make really good pancakes. 6 tablespoons of melted butter. Got it right there. Just pour it right in. 2 eggs. It is sort of like making pancakes. And then a little sriracha to give it some heat. And just give that a big stir. Next, I need chives. And then because it's corn, I thought a little jalapeno would be good. So I have 1.5 tablespoons of jalapeno. Just give it a little heat. Stir that in. Okay, so that's the wet mixture. And now I'm gonna pour the wet mixture into the dry mixture. So just in a circular motion, you don't wanna overmix these. You don't wanna develop the gluten in the flour, or you'll have tough pancakes. Okay, time to make the pancakes. So I'm gonna heat up a large saute pan, and I'm using clarified butter. And I make clarified butter by melting butter and allowing the white milk solids to settle to the bottom, and then I pour it off the clear golden liquid. It's got a higher burning temperature, so it's better for this. So a few tablespoons in the pan. And here's a pro tip. I use a measuring cup for making pancakes so they all come out exactly the same size. I'm using a 1/4 cup measure for each one. It just takes about 2 minutes, and they're ready to turn. They'll need about 1.5 minutes on the other side. Now I'll put them on a sheet pan lined with parchment paper and do the same with the rest of the batter. Then put them on a serving platter. In the summer, when the fields here are filled with gorgeous corn, I love to make fresh corn salad, and you're not going to believe how easy this is. So I've boiled corn for about 3 minutes until it's just not starchy. And the way you can tell is just to take a little kernel off and taste it. So you still have the fresh corn flavor. And it's perfect. They're crisp, but they're cooked all the way through. And I'm going to put them in ice water. It's called shocking them. This is going to be so good with my all-American grill of hamburgers. And instead of hot dogs, I'm going to do turkey sausages and homemade coleslaw and a surprise for dessert. Okay, so that's nice and cold. You know, putting it in ice water actually stops the cooking, but what else it does is it keeps the bright yellow color, and we want it to look gorgeous. Take the little end off right there and just stand it up in its rear end, and then run your knife all the way down the cob, and the kernels just come off beautifully like that. When the corn's fresh in East Hampton, I feel like I want to eat it every day. It's actually surprising how much corn you get from the kernels, isn't it? Okay, 5 corn right into the bowl. And then I'm just going to add a few ingredients that will really give it all of its fresh corn flavor. So the first thing I'm going to add is a little red onion. One of the tricks for cutting an onion is to leave the one end on, and then it keeps the whole thing together when you're cutting it. So I'll show you how this works. So slice it this way. Keep your fingers out of the way. And this way, the whole thing stays together when you're dicing it. So I need about 1/2 cup of red onion, which is 1 small red onion. Okay, that's done. All right, a little bit of cider vinegar and olive oil. I think the cider vinegar is really wonderful. It's sort of sweet, and it enhances the fresh corn flavor. 3 tablespoons of each. Olive oil, good olive oil. Salt and pepper, always good salt and pepper. And then the last ingredient is fresh basil. I just think corn and basil go really well together, so I put them together. So this is a really great little trick, how to julienne basil leaves, is you just stack them up one on top of the other, and then roll them up like a tight cigar. And then take your knife and just do really thin slices. And you end up with really gorgeous julienne, or sometimes called chiffonade. Okay, just like that. Toss it up. It's so fresh tasting. Perfect. Now, how easy was that? If you're looking for a totally delicious and versatile Tex-Mex salad, I've got just the thing. It's Fiesta corn and avocado salad. I'm going to start with the corn. So let me tell you how I do this. First, I cut off the bottom of the corn so it'll stand up straight, and then I run my knife between the kernels and the husk, just straight down, and they all just come off. I cook this in salted boiling water for about 5 to 7 minutes. Really depends on how tender the kernels are. So this is my system for cutting corn. Instead of having it bounce all over the kitchen, I get a sheet pan and a clean kitchen towel, and I just cut the kernels right onto the kitchen towel. And then pick up the kitchen towel and just put all the kernels right into the bowl. I've got 1 pint of cherry tomatoes. I use heirloom tomatoes because they look great. Cut in half through the stem. And then half a cup of red onion. Tex-Mex needs onion, right? And I've got 1 Holland pepper. So I'm just gonna dice this in like 1/2-inch dice. You can use orange pepper, red pepper, yellow pepper, or all 3 if you want a real fiesta. Next is 2 jalapeno peppers. What I did was I seeded them, took those ribs out, and minced them really finely. Gives it a lot of heat. It's great. Makes it very Tex-Mex. Okay, next is a lime vinaigrette, which is gonna really wake up all these sort of Tex-Mex flavors. I'm starting with 1/4 cup of freshly squeezed lime juice. I need 2 tablespoons of olive oil. 1½ teaspoons of lime zest. That's got a lot of flavor in it. Little garlic, just 1 teaspoon, minced garlic. And because it's Tex-Mex, 1/4 teaspoon of chipotle chili powder, which is chili powder, but it's got a little smokiness in it. 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. I'm just gonna whisk it all together. Okay, I'm gonna pour this over the salad. It's gonna really be delicious. Think of all the flavors in this. Give it a big stir. Just make sure it's really well combined. I diced 2 avocados and I tossed them with lemon juice just to keep them from turning brown. And I added at the end because I don't want it to get too mushed up. A little more salt and pepper. Make sure it's really well seasoned because it is, after all, Tex-Mex. It's great. Got great heat, but it's also sweet from the corn and the tomatoes. So I use it in my roasted salmon tacos instead of guacamole for a real change. It's great on the side with slow roasted spiced pork or tequila lime chicken. It's wonderful on a food table, and it's always the first to go. But this is the way I usually serve it. Put it in the middle of the table for a first course, and everybody just helps themselves. And now you know why I call it a Fiesta corn salad. It just looks like a fiesta. Yeah. First thing I'm gonna do is make a big pot of lobster corn chowder. It's kind of corn chowder with the volume turned up. What I've done is I've gotten 6 cooked lobsters. I mean, they're complicated enough to get the meat out without having to deal with those big pots of steaming water and screaming lobsters. Okay, so that's the meat from 6 lobsters. I'm just gonna put it aside and then put it in after I make the stock. The next thing is the corn. Can't make lobster corn chowder without corn. So I've got 5 ears of corn. This is the 5th. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the kernels right off the cob. And that's pretty easy. And I'm gonna use the shells of the lobsters and the corn husks to make the stock. Okay. And in my biggest pot you can possibly find, I have 2 cups of onions that I've been sauteing in some butter and olive oil, just beginning to brown. So the first thing is 1/2 cup of cream sherry. Just has that kind of sweetness that lobster and corn have, and it really is sort of classic with lobster soup. So delicious. And I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of paprika, which is basically ground red pepper. It just has wonderful flavor, and it also has great color. That's 1 and 2. And just cook that for about a minute until it all blends together. I love the smell of the onions and sherry. Okay, next, 8 cups of milk and 4 cups of cream. And 2 cups of white wine. Remember, always use a wine that you would drink. You don't want bad wine in your stock. You'll have bad stock. Okay, and then the lobster shells and corn. Just this entire thing's gonna go in, and it's just gonna flavor the stock so beautifully. No spoon. This is why you need a big pot for it. And all the juices from the lobster, everything goes right in. Lid on, 30 minutes, we're gonna have great stock. Okay, So I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil just heating away in the pan. I'm going to put the bacon in. And what that's going to do is going to render some of the fat out of the bacon and cook it for about 4 to 5 minutes. Okay, I'm going to take it all out with a slotted spoon. I'm going to put the bacon back into the soup later after it's cooked. And it'll still be crisp and flavorful. It won't sort of melt into the soup. And then I've got all that wonderful bacon fat that I can cook the vegetables in. How bad can that be? Okay, so I'm going to add all the potatoes. 4 cups of potatoes. Lots of potatoes. 3 cups of onions. Now it'll get browned and caramelized flavor. And 4 cups of chopped celery. Okay, and all the corn, add this to what I'm sauteing in the soup. So these are all the vegetables, and then later I'm going to add the stock. Big pot of stock. I'm just going to strain it right here. You just want to make sure you get every bit of the stock. Let it drain for a minute. So what I've done is really get all the flavor I can possibly get out of all the corn and all the lobster. So this stock is going to go right into the soup. It's going to cook for about 15 minutes. This just smells incredible. You can really smell the sherry and lobster, corn, all the vegetables. I'm just going to add a few things to make it really chunky. It's going to be delicious. All the lobster that I had, I cut up in big bite-sized pieces. I just love that it's so chunky. And the bacon that I cooked off in order to start the soup. And just to add the perfect finish, chopped chives. Gives it a little spark. This is my idea of lobster corn chowder.